Greetings. My name's Joshua Johnson, and I first of all just want to thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation. This presentation is Learning 2.0. It's an action research study that was done for Wisconsin Lutheran College, originally presented as part of my master's thesis in improving new literacy by embracing personal learning networks that utilize Web 2.0. That's a mouthful of terms, and in this two, maybe three-part video, I want to go through and talk about what I've learned in my own classroom, learned through my studies, through my reading, and through a survey that was implemented as part of the research to WELS teachers, and we'll get more to that later. I want to start by kind of giving you some background into why I chose this topic, or what I was noticing uh, as the learning landscapes in our country is changing. Just the learning landscape in general is changing. Really has a lot to do with the way that the internet is changing. Uh, when I grew up in a classroom, we didn't have the internet. There was internet access that was at homes. It was dial-up modems. People were using the internet as a place to go, usually as a resource to find information and maybe download some of those things for their own use, for their own knowledge generation. The internet has changed dramatically to the extent that 100% of our schools, public schools now, have access to the internet. Our individuals are able to access this internet anywhere, almost anywhere, at any time with mobile devices, wireless access. But the internet itself is changing from what was known as the internet 1.0, described before, where it was just resources. We go, we grab it, we consume it, to something that's known as Web 2.0. And you can really see this in our social media explosion over the last decade. Web 2.0 really focuses on our ability to not only consume information, but also create content, to upload pictures, videos, to write, to discuss, to do all of those things in this online forum. As a result, what we see as a literate person is starting to change. No longer is it just enough to be able to read and write. In order to be successful in our day and age, you need to be able to not only read and write, but to have what is known as, or what is referred to as, digital literacy. And this is just one type of literacy. There are hundreds of types of literacy that people recognize today, whether it's digital literacy, informational literacy, mathematical literacy, programming literacy. There's so many different types of literacies that Lou and Ferranzi in 2012 started to put together what is referred to as new literacy. And we'll get to that a little bit later. But as we look at literacy and we look at what is required of our students in order to be successful, in order to be able to communicate, the question really is, are schools changing? Or are we really just doing the same thing, teaching the same things we've always taught with maybe some new and flashier tools in the classroom? And I want you to think about what you're doing in your classroom. Is what you do in your classroom with your students, is it different? Is it different in really fundamental ways than what your teachers did with you when you were in the classroom? When I think about that, I realize that I'm not really making use of this tremendous resource we have in the internet. I will show you the International Society for Technology and Education standards. This is a summary of some of the standards, the T standards for teachers, NETS standards for teachers. And when I look at these, when I think about these in my classroom, I almost feel guilty that I am just a horrible teacher, because do I really promote this collaboration with technology, with students? And not just collaboration with the students next to you, but as part of this huge community, this global community that exists of students that are trying to learn, that are able to share and generate knowledge. Do I teach this safe and ethical use, and do I model the use of the internet in my classroom? And not just, yeah, here I have a PowerPoint for you kids, look, I'm using the internet and we're going to go online. But do I model my choices, the reasons I use some of these technological tools, and how I use them in order to communicate, in order to generate knowledge for myself and then share that information with others? The problem, as I see it, and as I reflect in my own classroom, and as I look at the classrooms around me, the problem is that we still have that sage on the stage mentality. In spite of a lot of theories that are widely accepted in educational circles by big hitters like Vygotsky, Piaget, Dewey, Garner, all of these researchers that talk about putting the children at the center of the curriculum and at the center of teaching, I think that we as teachers have this desire, or we feel this need, that we have to master all of the content and be experts on everything that we deliver to our students, and that really puts us in the center of the classroom environment. I've learned this and now I'm sharing it with you. I'm the gatekeeper to information here. That problem really takes away from the students being able to develop their curriculum and be at the center of education. It's that sage on the stage that also gets shown in the way that we use the internet. As teachers and students, Clark, Logan, and Luckin noted that internet use is not being used in sophisticated ways. And if the students, and this was done in 2009 research about students, if students aren't using this in sophisticated ways, the question is, are the teachers using it? Because a lot of people for a long time have thought that the students have this natural, innate knowledge of how to use technology. But it really is just the same way. When we talk about literacy in schools, we've taught literacy for years and years and years. But we don't just acknowledge like, oh, it's really important that you learn to read, so here's a bunch of books, figure it out. Or we don't just have this expectation like, oh, well, this child knows how to talk, they must know how to read as well. We spend countless hours in education working on training children to read and write. Same needs to be true of technology, of the way that we use and model and teach that digital literacy in our classrooms. Instead, though, we have schools that are hearing all of the ways that technology can transform education and all of the good things that technology can do, that they get this idea that technology is the silver bullet. Like, I am going to implement smartboards in my classrooms and all of a sudden students are going to learn better because of that. What happens, though, is that seeing this silver bullet mentality, we start throwing money at technology, but a lot of times, and I think my original observation was, I think it's a lack of preparation and a lack of training, that these things in our classroom really just get to be used in the same old way. Our smartboard is really just a fancy overhead. The internet, the access that we have in almost every public classroom, public school I should say, is just a library. It's a place where I can go and research information. We've got this idea that technology is just another way to deliver content rather than something that can truly transform the learning process and make it interactive and engaging. One of the reasons I think this actually happens comes from a term that was coined in 2001. It was a debate that has been raging for the last decade about digital natives and digital immigrants. Prensky in 2001 coined this term about digital natives, and you can see just from casual observation when we look at students and we see them on the computers using the tablets, their ears plugged into iPods all the time, we get this maybe mentality that students naturally know how to use the internet. But the problem is that it wasn't backed up by a lot of sufficient data. It was something that you could just casually observe, and really it does an injustice because it groups an entire group of people together by age rather than looking at each individual person, regardless of their age, whether they're a student, a teacher, a parent, as being someone who is on this continuum of digital literacy. Now, I mentioned digital literacy before. I mentioned the work being done by Lou and Ferzani that talk about what is referred to as this theory of new literacies, really taking all of the main points, all of the things about literacy, whether we're talking about reading and writing and communicating and math and all of these literacies, and bringing them together into an umbrella theory about new literacy. You'll often see that capitalized new literacy. And the goal here is that we understand we want literate students. We want students that can communicate effectively. And right now that means we need to be preparing students to communicate face-to-face, communicate with the written word, be able to read, but there's so many other ways for them to be able to create and present ideas. And a lot of that is being done in an online forum. Even with all the technology, even with all of the researchers and the focus on we need to incorporate and integrate technology into our classroom, it seems that our classrooms are almost eerily similar to the classrooms of our previous generations. I asked you to think about that before, and that's something that Greenhow, Rebellion, Hughes in 2009 looked at. How can we make use of the participatory and social engagement that is found almost innately in Web 2.0 environments, in these social media platforms, and get that into our classrooms in good, positive ways, and that will help our classrooms and professional developments. And this is something that is really backed up by the theories of some of our big educational, like I said, heavy hitters, and also supports their work as well. Examples would be Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences. The Web 2.0 is an excellent way. It provides the ability for teachers to deliver content in multiple ways, and students to go and find that content in a way that is fitting to them. Vygotsky talks about putting children at the center of the learning environment, and the wealth of information that is available on the internet really truly gives the children a way to say, okay, I'm supposed to be learning about mathematics, or I'm supposed to be learning about this concept. Now I'm going to go and find information about that in some way that is important to me. There's just so much information, so many things that we can do out there that the students can really start to help construct that curriculum. John Dewey focuses on the social aspects of education that are easily found in the social media of Web 2.0. And one of my favorite quotes I share with Piaget, who worked on students interacting with learning. Really, are we as educators, are we forming children who are only capable of learning what is already known? That's what I've been doing for years. I've been learning and mastering this content and then giving it to the children. Here's what we know about this. Instead of developing students with the skills that they can be creative and innovative and question and think about and really construct their own learning, something that will enable them to continue to push and generate that knowledge and share that knowledge and information with people in the future as well as today. Some specific examples of these Web 2.0 technologies that we're very familiar with, or we're probably very familiar with, are sites like YouTube. YouTube is just an excellent example. Desmet in 2009 points out that it encourages the peer review that we always want from our students, the ability to watch something, to critically look at and engage in content, to write, to create and revise work. But it's done in a different medium. And this medium has also been popular today as it encourages some classrooms to flip the way that they teach. We're sending students home with YouTube as the way that you're delivering your lecture. You're looking for the information typically delivered in the classroom, and then we're bringing the students back and we're working through the problems. We're discussing it in the classroom environment with the teacher right there. Wikis are another example of Web 2.0 technology that allows students to easily create and edit web page content. Really, it focuses on facilitating the creation of shared knowledge and disseminating that information and working with group interaction. Not only those two examples, but social media in general, whether you're talking about RSS feeds, Facebook, Twitter. It increases opportunities for students to become active learners because the classroom changes. The dynamic environments change where students are able to talk and discuss and share things from one part of the world to the other. And it's something that really can excite students and get them involved. So what I want to leave you with on this, after this first part where I just kind of talked about some of the background information some of the research or the reading that I've done is for you to think about where are you? Where are you as an educator? Are you a digital native? Do you just feel right at home on the computer with your devices integrating in your classroom? Are you an immigrant? Are you someone who is working to become that kind of native that feels that way? And remember, these are not bound by age. Are you the type of person that is working in maybe with other educators and saying, hey, you're an immigrant or you're someone, I'm going to help bring you over to this native side. I'm going to be your coach, your learning coach. Maybe you don't know where you're at. But I have a feeling that a lot of us feel like we are refugees, like we have just been left out in the cold with all of the changes because they happen so fast. And we sometimes feel like we don't have enough training or support. So I want you to think about where are you as an educator. And then join me for part 2, where I will reveal what other educators have said as I go through some of the data that I found in a technology survey that I issued to Wells educators, Wells high school educators. I'll share what they have said, and then we'll talk about what does that mean. So thank you for watching this first part. I hope you enjoyed it and it started you thinking about the internet, about technology in your classroom. Thanks. Have a good day.